It used to be a whole lot easier to find a really good value in a watch, but these days companies are raising their prices. Seiko, I'm looking at you. Even micro brands are getting more and more expensive, and AliExpress watches can cost $400 to $500 these days, believe it or not. So if you are looking for a great value, where do you turn? Well, I'm here to tell you that there are still some pretty great watches at a reasonable price to be found. And one of them is today's watch. Today's watch comes all the way from Japan. It is what I consider a JDM gem. It is no secret that everything is becoming more expensive these days. Food, clothing, gasoline. Even the affordable end of the watch industry is creeping up in price, with Seiko, micro brands, and even AliExpress factory brands doubling or tripling in price. Certainly for the latter two, there has also been a bump in quality, craftsmanship, and materials, while Seiko is just raising prices because, well, they can. So where do you look for a great watch at a very affordable price these days? I think the answer just might be the Japanese domestic market. Today I want to show you the Citizen CA7030-11E Eco-Drive Chronograph. At $150, with great finishing and sapphire crystal, this may be one of the best values around, if you can get one. I first saw this JDM gem on Dave's Instagram over at Just the Watch. I loved the tuxedo aesthetic, with dual subdials arranged in a vertical orientation. Dave mentioned that he could snag one for me for around $180 Canadian on sale, which is around $130 US, and he'd ship it to me. I was grateful. I sent Dave an even $200 Canadian to cover the cost of shipping, and then I waited. And I waited. And I waited. It took over 4 months to reach the Great White North from Japan, but made it did, and it was worth the wait. Now, before I slip into too much hyperbole, I do want to clarify that this review heavily factors price into the equation. If this was a mid-tier watch costing $1,500, I would expect more from it. So when I say that the finishing is quite good, bear in mind that I mean for a $150 watch. But the finishing is quite good, even for a $400 watch. The polishing is even, and the brushing on the lug stands up well, even under macro. And the dimensions are pretty great too. At 41 millimeters across, it provides ample room for the chronograph complications, but at a hair under 46 millimeters lug to lug, it will fit smaller wrists without an unsightly overhang. And because the lugs are fairly short, Citizen went ahead and notched out the case for you, just enough to ensure that the straps will not rub. The strap that comes with it is actually pretty nice genuine leather, but if you do want to try on some of your spare 20mm straps that you have lying around the house, you will find that this thing looks good on almost anything. The dial itself is well balanced, with only the date window marring the symmetry a little bit. And honestly, the date is so deeply recessed into the watch that in certain situations, it is entirely unreadable anyway. Okay, there's one really interesting feature to this watch that I haven't mentioned before, and it's the date complication. You have to wind this thing forever to get it to change the date. It's supposedly a quick set date complication, but let me tell you, it is anything but quick. The chronograph engages well with a nice audible click, but when you press it a second time to pause the chronograph, it has no significant tactile feedback and leaves you wondering if you actually engaged it. Depressing the lower pusher also produces a satisfying tactile click, and it sweeps the hand back to the 0 position. I know that many prefer the instant snapback of the Seiko Mecha Quartz movements, but I personally do love that this Citizen movement has a running second subdial and no 24-hour register. Your mileage may vary. Either way, you're only going to be timing up to 60 minutes with this JDM gem because the subdial at 12 only counts to 60. Enough to time some eggs or a 5K run, but not enough to time how long my wife is in Target. Let's talk about the picks and the nitpicks for a second. As for the picks, let's start with the finishing. It's very well done. For a $150 or $170 watch, it's fantastic. The dial is handsome and it's well balanced. Everything is well proportioned, including the case and the dial. I love that it's Eco-Drive, especially for a chronograph, because that means that I can use the chronograph with impunity without worrying about killing a battery. This thing has sapphire crystal, which I think is awesome for a watch in this price range. How often do you find a Citizen watch or a Seiko watch with sapphire crystal that costs $150 to $170? And the cherry on top is it's 100 meters water resistant. So if you do happen to take this in the pool, it's not going to be a problem so long as you switch out that strap. And then of course there's the price. I got this for $130 US on sale. Look for a sale. You're going to get an amazing watch for a cheap price. But even if you pay the current regular price of $170, I think you're still getting an amazing value. As for the nitpicks, well, the finishing on the hands does not hold up well under macro. It looks just fine in person, but if you're going to be taking those macro shots for Instagram, you might be disappointed. The date window, as I mentioned, is recessed too deep. The vertical brushing on the sides of the case is not my favorite. I don't know why manufacturers do vertical brushing on the sides of a case. It completely ruins the lines of the case. But anyway, that might just be my personal preference. Now this thing does not have great loom. So if you love loom, this is not the watch for you. But if you don't feel that a watch of this style needs a lot of loom, as you won't be taking it diving deep into dark waters, then you might forgive it. And finally, this is Japan domestic market only. So it's not something that you're going to be able to get your hands upon easily unless you have a connection or you pay somebody to ship it to you. At the end of the day, this is a really handsome and well-made watch for well under $200. It wears well, and it has a beautiful tuxedo aesthetic, which many will appreciate. Plus, it's versatile. Citizen calls it a sports chronograph, and I think it would fit in just as well in the boardroom as it would at a football game. So if you like what you see, and you have a friend in Japan, or you don't mind using an import service, then I can wholeheartedly and enthusiastically recommend this JDM gem. After all, these days, this Eco-Drive chronograph is going to cost you less than a full tank of gas for your F-150 at the pumps. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not consider liking and subscribing? It really does go a long way to propping up my fragile ego. And I want to hear what you think about this watch. So if you leave a comment down below, I will read it and reply. I always enjoy talking to you folks in the comments. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.